Checking in on the market, so it went pretty much as expected in terms of a daily inside bar. That's the most likely scenario, a tightening range after a spike in volatility. So we're looking at the hourly time frame, and we were looking for a lower high heading into this morning. We started pre-market with a higher open. We pulled back. We hit the low of the day. And then we had a nice 5-minute equilibrium, and this was a very clear pattern in terms of dictating direction on the day. We had the high of the day, the low of the dump. The RSI got down in the low 20s, so a nice 5-minute oversold bounce all the way back up. We had a top fishing day with the high of the day, which is a scenario where you go bearish. And if we break the high of the day, you exit. But just the size of the bounce at that point, the bulls being exhausted on the way up, it was in a bullish reaction to data, some housing data and some ISM data. And then we pulled back and formed another higher low and a lower high and a higher low and a lower high and a higher low. And there's your bull break right there on this candlestick. So the bull break occurred at 279.12, and then we saw a nice 50-cent plus move to a new high of the day. But from there, we just continued to tighten up and ended the day with some weakness, and then after hours with some weakness as well. So where does that let us stand after all that? We are on the hourly time frame, and it looks like we might test that low of today, tomorrow. And the most important resistance for me is up at 279.76, and then the pre-market high pretty much 280, and the most important supports are 278.71 and then down to 276.84. Today it is clearly, and really the last 2 days, this whole dump and the bounce, it's clear that it's the tech sector keeping the glue together for the S&P 500. So if the tech sector rolls over, it's going to be up to the financial sector to then start to see some strength. Otherwise, we are going to head back down towards support and continue consolidating. So right now, it looks like we closed after hours just above support. So we'll see what after hours does in terms of the futures market. But if we get an inside bar bear break, we might lose this 12-period exponential support for the first time on this entire bull move if this inside bar breaks bearish tomorrow. And again, then we would be looking down at 276.84 as the next clear level. IWM on the daily closed near the low of the day, so we knew it was a weaker bounce just by looking at it from yesterday. And here with extended hours on, we had the higher open, we consolidated and held support, lower high, and we ended with a lower low. Or I take that back. We did hold the low of the day, we closed at the low of the day, and we dropped to that lower low after hours. So 155.96, 155.59, we are closer to breaking bear here. We have already seen the daily lower high and lower low, and it looks to me like weekly consolidation is underway for IWM. If we break 155.59, if these bear breaks don't get followed through, that's when we zoom out and look for the potential of a weekly bull flag. But if, say, tomorrow this inside bar breaks bearish, it's solid bear volume, we drop down due to the lack of support. Looks like there's a little gap at 154.37. I'll take that back. It's not a gap there. But there's a lack of support is the bottom line because we ran so hard. So we'd just be looking at the lows of these days, and the most clear support nearby is 152.40, this little low that stood out a few weeks ago. So noticing the shift in momentum, and now the question is going to be, is it going to be a shift that is going to give us significant weekly consolidation? Because if it's just a bull flag, the odds of continuation are very high. But if we end up pulling back, down into the low 140s, that's when it sets up to be a potential equilibrium. So it's just the starting sign, it's just the shift beginning to get going. And tomorrow, how these daily inside bars will break will be telling as well. So here's QQQ. You can see it's holding up much better. Also a daily inside bar with an indecision range, but the bounce was way more significant. And look at the difference, a higher low and then a break of the high of pre-market. And we did see profit taking into the end of the day. The biotech sector had a dump because the head of the FDA resigned. So that shook things up at the end of the day. But you can see the tech sector very clearly with that higher high. Nobody else did that. So that shows us where the strength is. Amazon and Google are leading the way for the bulls. Facebook has had a monster 2 days for the bulls in the tech sector. So that's, like I said, that's what's keeping SPY strong. XLF is not keeping SPY strong. We're seeing lower wicks. So again, we broke support, but not getting a whole bunch of downside. But we did drop to a lower low today. So the hourly chart was a lower high, lower low. The bounce at the end of the day was just another lower high. So we're clearly consolidating. And this is still very healthy consolidation because of these wicks. So it's when you lose the daily uptrend and then see bear volume and closes near the low of the day showing bear momentum that it starts to be more than healthy consolidation. But at this point, that's not the case. Weekly time frame for XLF, again, just beginning to see the signs of the consolidation, and we'll see what kind of follow through. Pretty much Best case for the bears, now that we lost the daily uptrend, would be a bounce attempt, a lower high, and then a lower low, confirming the new downtrend on the daily time frame. VIX today, inside bar, formed that hourly higher low as anticipated. So higher low formed, lower high is 1540, higher low is 1430. So it's just a tightening range as we head into tomorrow. And we're going to look for this hourly equilibrium to give us a clear break. And anything under 1540 will be a lower high into the morning. And key support 1430 is a double low. U.S. oil. So oil is still tight, and if oil gets a bear break, that's only going to increase the odds that the S&P 500 sees further consolidation as well. So we obviously have seen the bounce timed together from the lows in December. High of the bull move, low of the pullback, double top, higher low, lower high set at 57.17. And the inventory report tomorrow is going to determine probably which direction we break from this pattern. 55.55 and 55 are the two support levels that are going to be key, and if they break, weekly consolidation will be underway. Natural gas, nice follow through for the bulls. Keeping the 4-hour uptrend the entire time the past few days here has kept it nice and clear that the bulls have maintained control. So we had a higher low at 2814, a higher low at 2825, a higher low at 2835, and now the bulls are seeing continuation in after hours. So we're looking up really at 290 psychological and then 3 psychological, and the bulls have seen a nice slow and steady move. I have not seen any of the profits here. Was looking for a bounce in natural gas, but wasn't the setup that I was looking for. And the marijuana sector has my attention as always. There's lots of opportunity there. So again, congrats to the bulls that got it. Wasn't the setup that I wanted. Doesn't mean it's not the setup that others want. And we'll see how long this bounce can go. Still looking for a weekly lower high. Don't lose sight of the longer term. Anything under 374 is a weekly lower high. Perhaps a weekly trend change will be a longer term opportunity to look for some clear shifts in momentum. So that's that. Hope you do good things out there. Hope you have a great night. We'll check back in tomorrow. See you then. So continuing onward, chapter 3 of our adventure started in Charlotte, went through Smoky Mountain National Park as I was headed west, headed up to Mammoth Cave in Kentucky for this chapter, and also to Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area between Tennessee and Kentucky, with the goal of continuing westward towards Colorado. So here in Mammoth Cave National Park, that's my tent setup. I've got a very easy to carry light one-person tent, lots of mesh on it, which I like because when I sleep without the fly on, it is great for, feeling exposed and being out in the open, and great for sunrises. There's my hammock. There's my pack. I think it's a 55-gallon or 55-liter pack. And I did have a mat at that point. The army mat that I was sleeping on was from my previous road trip where I learned my lesson, paid for a $100 sleeping mat, and it was well worth it. So I unfortunately didn't have a good experience in Mammoth Cave, not because of this spider. That was a nice little jolt in the morning as I went to pick up my bag, but the reason I didn't have a good time in Mammoth Cave is because it was June and it was the summer and ticks were everywhere. Literally every night I would go back into my tent and have to take off all my clothes. I end up naked in every chapter. I guess that's the way it goes. I had to take off all my clothes in my tent and literally pick over a dozen ticks off of me every single day. And of course, I got most of them, but some of them did latch on. And of course, that's significant exposure to Lyme's disease, which is no good. So avoid these areas in the summer because ticks are rampant. I'm not, exaggerating when I say 10 to 20 ticks pulled off my body every single night before I would go to bed. So these are some nice seashells that I found out on the area as well. This is heading towards Land Between the Lakes, Tennessee and Kentucky. And there's a nice elk lady. And they had this conservation area of 700 acres. And it's pretty much giving you a taste of the animals that are to come out west as you continue towards Colorado and towards Wyoming and all these states. They've got elk and bison and all that just out in the wild. This was a conservatory, so you could go in and drive around and check them out. And of course, the best part about road tripping, or one of the best parts, is the sunrises and sunsets. They are everywhere in terms of being frequent every day. And it's great because they're so different. So you have, all these different landscapes and different cloud covers, and just every single one so much different than the next. And that was, the highlight of the day oftentimes in terms of things to look for. And one thing that I loved to do on these road trips was, find a spot into the dusk, because animals are most active early in the morning and in the evening at dusk. And so if you find a spot at, an hour or two before the sun sets and you sit there and you do not move, animals will interact as if you're not there. They obviously know you're there to a certain degree, but, I've been able to sneak up on some animals just to see how close I could get. And I got real close to a baby elk. I'm sure I have a picture of that, but to be able to just be really silent and not move, nature goes on around you, and then you just observe. And I love observing nature. It's one of my favorite things to do. And, people meditate, and that definitely helps calm your mind. I would never sit out and intentionally meditate. The way I would do things is sit down and then just be still and let my mind completely relax, and just, feel into the environment around me. That's my way of meditating, and that's how I calm things down and stay very even keel emotionally. And that definitely has an impact on my trading as well. So it wasn't, this strict meditation practice. If you're living in a city, or if you have, surroundings where you literally need to lock yourself away to be able to meditate, that's one thing. But when you're out in the middle of nature, it's almost like forced meditation when you're the only person around and you're in the middle of this vast expanse. So that was chapter 3. We're going to continue heading westward into tomorrow, and we'll check back in then. Have a good rest of your day.